Africa has had many ancient kingdoms that we often don't hear about, some of which are either buried under the sand or simply lost to the archaeological record. Egypt often overshadows many of these ancient kingdoms, even if we're aware of their existence. So today, I wanted to shine a light on one of the greatest ancient African kingdoms that we seldom hear about, one that caused Egypt a lot of trouble, the Kingdom of Kerma. What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. Kerma is largely recognized as the second significant ancient Nubian civilization after Ta-Seti. The beginnings of ancient Nubian culture comes to our attention around 3500 BC, with what scholars call the A group culture. Then, in 2300 BC, the so-called C group culture thrives, and then a major kingdom develops called Kerma. The linguistic affiliation of the Kerma culture is currently debated, but the most recent scholarship states that the Kerma people spoke a Nilo-Saharan language. Kerma ultimately became recognized as the physical and perhaps the spiritual capital of the Proto-Kushite people, or the people who would later become known as the Kushites. Kerma civilization was marked from the very beginning by a highly organized monarchy. It existed largely as a religious and governmental center, protected by a sophisticated network of walls and ditches, and it held not only a large mud brick royal headquarters, but also a massive religious structure that grew steadily over time. Material items found at the Defufa Temple in Kerma, built around 1600 BC, help scholars understand the origins of Kushite belief systems. There, statues of Amun, the ram-headed creator god, were clearly labeled and sculptured. At a later date, this cult was worshipped in Thebes and became the most prominent god in ancient Egypt. Throughout the history of Kush, Amun remained the chief deity, which greatly shaped the order in which the Kushite pharaohs ruled. Even though the Nubian state of Ta-Seti was absorbed by Old Kingdom Egypt, small Nubian kingdoms continued to exist by the Nile for centuries after the close of 3000 BC. Two kingdoms began to emerge and take precedence, the Sai Kingdom and the Kingdom of Kerma. Sometime around the 18th century BC, the Kingdom of Kerma conquered the Sai Kingdom. After this event, Kerma became a serious rival to Egypt, and they later became known as Kush in Egyptian literature. With the rise of the Kingdom of Kerma, a power vacuum in the Nile Valley began to take form, and the people of Kerma began filling it with cultural and political expansion northward, almost to Aswan in Egypt. The increased power and importance of Kerma by Middle Kingdom Egypt may have been the reason Egyptians initiated a military campaign to gain control of Lower Nubia. The ancient Egyptian name for the Kerma territory appears to have changed over time. It was probably, at least in part, called Yam in the late Old Kingdom and perhaps later Irem. The designation of Kush begins to appear in the Egyptian records in the 12th dynasty, and most likely this is the Egyptian name corresponding to the most powerful and centralized Upper Nubian Kerma state at that time. Because of the Kerma threat, we're fortunate enough to learn the names of two of their kings, Awa'a and Udatresis. In or around 1575 BC, during the latter part of the 17th dynasty, the people centered in Kerma invaded Egypt and actually came pretty close to destroying it had they decided to stay and occupy it. An Egyptian governor named Sobeknat wrote about this devastating event. "Listen, you who are alive upon earth. Kush came, aroused along his length, he having stirred up the tribes of Wawat, the land of Punt, and the Medja." It would seem as though the Kushites in Kerma previously gathered a sizable alliance with all the other Nubians in the area and even a non-Nubian group in the people of Punt, who were perhaps located all the way in the modern country of Somalia. Contrary to popular belief, the 25th dynasty of Egypt was not the first time the Kushites invaded Egypt. It was simply the first time the Kushites decided to stay and occupy it. Kerma was in constant conflict with Egypt. Power and control often alternated between the two states, and this struggle was dominated by their need to control the river traffic and trade goods and the gold mines at the Wadi Alaki in the eastern desert, which were first exploited by Old Kingdom Egypt. This conflict, however, seems not to have lessened Kerma's considerable trade with Egypt. An Egyptian trading post built at Kerma during the early 1900s BC, for example, showed signs of both Egyptian and Kushite artisans producing glazed pottery, beads, and other jewelry, metalwork, and even cabinetry. For the most part, these goods showed a basic functional Kushite style. At its peak, during which the largest of the royal Berea tumuli were constructed, Kerma's capital expanded considerably. The kingdom also expanded southward beyond the Deba Bend, at least to the fourth cataract at Napata. At this time, Kerma was as powerful as Egypt had been in the Middle Kingdom. Unfortunately, in the 16th century BC, Egypt began to emerge from the weakness of its second intermediate period when they were having trouble with the Hyksos. During this time, Egypt became strong enough to launch a number of successful military offensives against Kerma, and it was not long before Kerma finally fell to Egyptian invaders. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, please consider supporting Home Team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself, remember your ancestors. Peace.